Good morning. Good to see you this morning today. There's a few more than as Denise said than when we first sat down. So good to see you. Good. Also welcome those who are online as well. Thank you for joining us and joining your church here, even if you can't be physically here. We've got to turn the clock back a bit today. This is part 2 of the sermon, which I started on the 20th of January, and all about the new year. It was supposed to be one sermon, but it turned into 2. Just go back a little bit in time. So even though we're a bit past it, there was also another opportunity for New Year's resolutions. We were looking at those, and that was, of course, for the Lunar New Year that was had. So there's both in Korea and China, and many Asian countries celebrate the Lunar New Year. And for the Korean custom, we have a rice cake soup for the new year, and you become a year older after you have that. So even Reggie got into the groove of that, and he got his rice cake as well. So he's also a year older. Probably shouldn't be showing you that we feed our dog with regular cutlery in case you come to visit us. You might know which one Reggie's had, but he's part of our family, so he gets the rice cakes for New Year as well. The beginning of the new year is a great time to reflect on where we would like to be and what changes we would like to make. But as we know, New Year's resolutions, we don't always stick to them. And I read during the week, one way is to actually delay your New Year's resolutions till March. Okay, and of course today is the 2nd of March. And the reason is, this person, or some recommend that you separate the time when you make the resolution to when you actually implement it. And it gives you time to actually make a plan of how you're going to do that New Year's resolution. So that was pretty good. So anyway, yesterday I started one of my New Year's resolutions, and that was I need to lose a bit of weight. All my clothes are rapidly shrinking, so I have to get with the program. So yesterday I started a 21-day juice fast. So no food until the 22nd, Friday, the 22nd of February, except for watermelon, because that's 91% water. So having juice, just juice, and a bit of watermelon when I need a bit of energy. So I'm telling you, because I'm doing it myself, I'm not in a group this time. So hopefully you can remind me, and I'll think, oh dear, the church is going to ask. I better keep doing it. So anyway, we shall see how we go. So today's day 2 of the juice fast. So that's one of my New Year's resolutions that started yesterday. So last time we looked at Psalms chapter 90. Okay, it's not showing on here. Okay, taking a bit of time. Anyway, we'll do it just takes a while. We'll do the whole of Psalm 90 together. I'll read the part in regular font, and if you could read all together in bold, so we'll do the whole of Psalm 90. Lord, through all the generations, you have been our home. Before the mountains were born, before you gave birth to the earth and the world, from beginning to end, you are God. Altogether, you turn people back to dust, saying, return to dust, you mortals. For you, 1,000 years are as a passing day, as brief as a few night hours. You sweep people away like dreams that disappear. They are like grass that springs up in the morning. In the morning it blooms and flourishes, but by evening it is dry and withered. We wither beneath your anger. We are overwhelmed by your fury. You spread out our sins before you, our secret sins, and you see them all. We live our lives beneath your wrath, ending our years with a groan. 70 years are given to us. Some even live to 80. But even the best years are filled with pain and trouble. Soon they disappear and we fly away. Who can comprehend the power of your anger? Your wrath is as awesome as the fear you deserve. Teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom. O Lord, come back to us. How long will you delay? Take pity on your servants. Satisfy us each morning with your unfailing love, so we may sing for joy to the end of our lives. Give us gladness in proportion to our former misery. Replace the evil years with good. Let us, your servants, see your work again. Let our children see your glory. And may the Lord our God show his approval and make our efforts successful. Yes, make our efforts successful. So that's the psalm we've been looking at in this Where Did the Time Go? Where did the time go? Just a brief overview from last time. This psalm is the oldest psalm. It was written by Moses, no less. Okay, the only psalm that was written by him. And we believe that it was written after significant events of Numbers chapter 20. Okay, so those three significant events for Moses was the death of Moses' sister Miriam, the death of Moses' brother and closest confidant, Aaron, and then the third major event was Moses himself was barred from entering the promised land after breaking faith or breaking trust with God by hitting for the water on the stone instead of speaking to it. And so crisis can help us, or we can often reevaluate life's priorities when these sort of things happen. And maybe that's what Moses was looking at as well. And so, it starts off with, talking about God. Moses begins by focusing on God, using the imagery of God as our home or our refuge. Okay, it places God from everlasting to everlasting, no beginning and no end. However, it then takes a bit of a jarring about face in verse 3. In contrast to the immortal God, we are mortal. And it says, we return to the dust. Start as dust, we return to the dust. It's interesting what used to happen for the ordination of a pope, and they did call it an ordination. And what they would do is, as the pope is being lifted up and carried along by whoever, there would be some cardinals in front, and they would light some flax. Flax is a very dry material, and when it's lit, it's consumed very, very quickly. And so as they're doing this, as the Pope is being paraded, as he's being, by the people, being given all honour and praise, they would say the saying, Pater Sancte, sic transit gloria mundi. I've probably massacred the language, but anyway, it means Holy Father, so passes the glory of this world. So even as he's being ordained as the titular head of the Roman Catholic Church, he is reminded that the earth's glory passes like the lighting of the flax and is consumed. I got actually a video of it from 1958. It was the last time they did that for Pope John the 23rd. It's a very, very old picture, very, very old video, so you can't make it out, but you'll be able to see the Pope being carried along and the cardinals in front. You won't be able to see them lighting it, but you'll hear them say in front of him that the earth's glory passes away.
Naturalmente le parole, la formula delle parole è la medesima, tutte e tre le volte.
And there he is being carried along,
Santo,
and then they stop.
Gloria mundi.
They stop, and then they're lighting this flax.
Pater Sancte, sic transit gloria mundi.
And then it continues. They did this about 7 times in the ceremony. So quite interesting that when the Pope is being ordained, they say to him, hey, the world's glory passes away as quickly as the flax burns up. So anyway, they stopped all that after Vatican II, so they don't do those sort of things anymore. So then, yeah, the earth passes away, the glory we pass away. And then it switches again, about 1,000 years being like a day, or actually just like the few hours before dawn to God. And it says we are swept away like dreams that disappear. And how frustrating it is when you have a dream you're all involved in and you wake up and you forget about it quite quickly in general. Okay, that's what our lives are compared to, like the dream that disappears so quickly. And then it talks about, the psalm in verse 7 and 9 talks about God's wrath. And we believe the context was that they'd been wandering in the wilderness for 40 years and a whole generation had died in the wilderness. And it wasn't because of some randomness of sin or anything like that, but because of their rebellion. God couldn't bring them in the promised land. It would have been disastrous because they didn't follow him, they didn't obey him. So God had to let that generation die out in order to have people that would be obeying. And in fact, God's wrath is actually when God accepts our decision to reject him, continually reject him. That's what God's wrath is, giving up. And I'll do a sermon on that. It's quite interesting. One of the church members at one of my churches, she was going through a difficult time. And she was noticing that in the verse of the day, she was looking at it, the last 4 digits was the 4 digits in this verse of the day was the last 4 digits of her credit card. And anyway, she had an impression, look up Psalms using those last 4 digits of your credit card. And she did. And the last 4 digits of her credit card was 6933. And when she looked it up, this was the verse. For the Lord listens to the needy and does not despise his captive people. And it was a message that she really needed to hear. So anyway, I thought, I wonder what my credit card does. So I got to my credit, when I got home, I got my credit card out and it ended in 2015. And when I looked up, there's no Psalms 2015, okay? Psalms only goes up to 9. So, there was a bit of a dud. So then I went to my debit card. I thought, maybe I'll get some joy with a debit card. So anyway, this is my debit card. Now, I've blanked out all the important things because probably in the 30 pages of terms and conditions, one of it is don't show your credit card on the screen at church. And definitely don't do it when it's being live streamed on YouTube. So anyway, all those bits are out, but you can see it ends in 9010. And so guess what Psalms 90:10 is? 70 days are given to us, some live to 80, but even the best years are filled with pain and trouble. Soon they disappear and we fly away. I got to get a new bank. They'll give me a decent psalm instead of that one. So that was, oh boy, so much for that. Now we can't necessarily take someone else's experience for our own. So I learned that the hard way. But anyway, when it expires, I'll get a new one. Hopefully it'll be a better psalm. So yeah, 70 or 80 years. We looked at how in a typical lifetime of 70 or 80 years, growing up, 18 years, that leaves 52 or 62, okay? Sleeping about 8 hours a day, so we'll sleep about 17 years, okay, or 21 years, 70 or 80. So awake time as an adult is 35 years or 41 years that we've got to do everything. So we've got 35 to 41 years left to eat meals, building family and social relationships, working at our jobs, and doom scrolling on our phones. So that's what we've got the time to do. So now we pivot to chapter 90 and verse 12. We finished off there last time, and so now we're on this verse about numbering our days. Now, Andrew set the scene for the sermon, but also for something else. I've also got a bit of a blast from the past as well. Now, only those of us who are quite old might know this. See if you remember this, okay? See if you remember this. No, that one. Oh, where is it? Okay, here it is.
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Now, who remembers that? It was in my house a lot too, except we had to leave the room when it was on, all us kids, so Mum could watch it. But I remember this like sands through the hourglass. These are the days of our lives. How good was that? How true was that? Psalm 90:12 teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom. The brevity of life. Well, I was thinking, as I was preparing this week, John was here for part 1, but not here for part 2 of the sermon. And I was a little bit sad about that. I thought, wow, preaching on this and how true it is, something that's happened here in this church. So, yeah, very sad about that. I've never heard an older person say, gee, life passed by so slowly. Ever heard that? Ever heard someone say, gee, it took a long time to get to this point. Time just goes so fast. And so I'm putting up on the projector an hourglass, and it's just going to be going all the time during the sermon. It'll be on all of them. I've got some ASMR as well going through as well. You hear that? That's the sound of sound, okay, of sand going through the hourglass. So we'll just have that going through as well to remind ourselves how time is going away. So yeah, teach us the brevity of life. So anyway, I turned to the internet to see when will I die, okay, and I went to the internet. Where else would you go? And this is what I found. Okay, I'm going to die on Thursday, January 15, 2037, according to this the death clock site. You put in your details and it'll tell you your date of death. Well, I didn't like that one. 2037 is pretty soon. So I went to another site. This one was a bit better. It gave me till December 11, 2047. So I gained an extra 10 years there, going to that site. Then I went to another site, and it says you'll live to be 88 years, 4 months, and 20 days old. So I thought that one's a bit better. And it's even got a tombstone in loving memory taken from us on September 24, 2051. It was a very handy site because it also had a link. Share your date of death with friends, okay? On Facebook, Twitter, or email, okay? So if you get an email, that's you'll know that I took their advice about that. But yeah, internet's got all sorts of things. Okay. Don't count the days, make the days count. Don't count the days, make the days count. Okay, Billy Graham said something similar. You can't count the days, but you can make your days count. When Moses considered the frail nature of humanity and the righteous judgment and wrath of God, it led him to ask God to help him to understand the shortness of life. That was when Moses considered all of these things. He said, hey, I really need to understand the shortness of life. By understanding the brevity of life, we can grow in wisdom. To grow in wisdom, understanding that. Numbering our days is simply applying the same kind of discipline with time as we do with money. Okay, with our money, we're careful. We worry about what we spend and how much we've got, what we need for groceries, what we need for our loan, what we need for the future. And so counting our days is applying the same discipline to our time as well. Hey, I've only got this much amount of time. What am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with it? That's what numbering our days means. Realizing that life is short helps us to use the little time we have more wisely for eternal good. So what does the world do with this, about the philosophy of the shortness of life? What does the world do? Probably the main thing that we're familiar with that people do when understanding the shortness of life is a bucket list. Okay, a bucket list. What do I want to do before I pass away? Okay, might be things like, travel, different goals, experiences, things to do. There's nothing necessarily wrong with these things, okay? Nothing necessarily wrong. But that's not all that we should be living for. What might a Christian bucket list look like? I'll have a bit of a look at the end of a sermon, have some suggestions of what we might do as Christians that number our time. So that is the wisdom that we apply. What is the wisdom we apply to our hearts? Is that which leads us to use our life in preparation for eternal life. Okay, this life is short, okay, but it's preparation for life eternal, which will go on forever and ever. Our life on earth is so short compared to the eternity which lies ahead. And so too the world's sorrows as well. The world's sorrows are also short compared to eternity as well. Both sides are. Now, as people, we don't like to think about numbering our days in some ways. About half of all adult Australians don't have a valid will, okay? And about half of all Australians who die without a valid will, okay? Some people are under the impression if you prepare a will, you're going to die earlier. So they figure they won't write a will. It's true, it's quite interesting actually about the mentality behind it. But anyway, on August 10, quick commercial, Trust Services, Pastor Josh will be here and he'll be taking a seminar in the afternoon about looking after our estate and things like that. When we went to Canada or America in 2010 for the General Conference session there in Atlanta, we went to Canada, where of course my dad is from, and we went to his hometown, and there's still relatives there and things like that, that are still there in Simcoe. And one of the things that we did there was we went to the cemetery to see the graves of Grandpa. Samuel was his name, my dad's father, and some other people as well, other gravestones as well while we were there. But one gravestone really shocked us. Okay, that was this one. My auntie Ruth and Uncle Nick, Dad's sister Ruth Kotanko there, and Nick Ratrowski. What's missing from that gravestone? What information is missing there? Yeah, the date of death is missing. And I thought, could take time. But what really shocked us about this was we just had lunch with them. They had got their gravestone all ready. They would go visit it from time to time. I don't know if this is and we found another gravestone of another relative as well who was alive. So they've got everything ready to go. Never seen that before, so we were quite shocked to sort of see people had gone to that amount of preparation for the inevitable end of their life. So anyway, I haven't done that, that's for sure. Leave that for my kids to work out. So then it switches, okay, 13 to 14. Oh Lord, come back to us. How long will you delay? Take pity on your servants. Satisfy us each morning with your unfailing love, so we may sing for joy to the end of our lives. The psalmist pleads with God to have compassion, to have pity on us, his people. This was their only hope, for God having pity and compassion. They thought that God had abandoned them. You know, the expression, come back to us. How long will you delay? Whereas the reality is, had God left them? Who'd left who? It was the people who had left God, okay? It was the people who had left God. No, not God had left them. It was the people who left God. And so they're saying, come back to us. But in reality, they were the ones who had gone away, not God. And Moses uses a very significant word in this text, in the word where it says, satisfy us each morning with your unfailing love. That word there, unfailing love, is actually the word hesed, which is the covenant word for God's love. It's a very deep word. It means steadfast love, loving kindness, love and faithfulness, faithful love, loyal love. God's covenant love is his hesed, his unfailing love. Satisfy us in the morning. In verses 5 and 6, it talks about how mankind flourishes in the morning, just like the grass, you know, which is all wilted, you know, by the evening time. And so he says, satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love. Okay, not like in the, you know, how we just bloom and then fade away. And it's this love that enables us to sing with joy to the ends of our lives, as it says there. Verse 15, give us gladness in proportion to our former misery. Replace the evil years with good. They had been through a tough time, 40 years wandering in the desert. 40 years wandering in the desert, seeing a whole generation pass away. And so now they're saying, hey, we've been through enough. We've been through enough. Please give us some good times as much as the bad times that we've had. Replace those evil years with good. You know, the same proportion that we've suffered. Please also give us that same proportion in good times ahead. And of course, they were looking forward to the promised land. They were on the border of the promised land. Tough times don't last forever. And so here Moses says, hey, we want to see some good times as well. Let your servants see your work, see you work again. Let our children see your glory. After 40 years in the desert, Moses desired two things: to see God's work again, to see God's work or his glory again, but also for the children to see God's glory as well. It's often been said there are no children in the no grandchildren in the kingdom of God. Okay, everybody must make their own decision to be a child of God. Now, we can't bring our children into the kingdom. Of course, we don't really encourage them, but yeah, our children have to make their own decision. There are no grandchildren in the kingdom of God. How important it is that we tell our children our life story with God. You know, the times that God has been with us in our experience as Christians, and give them the anticipation that they too will see God working in their lives. You know, it's a precious gift to give to our children. How God has led us, not just how God has led people in the Bible, how God has been with us, how he has intervened in our lives, and that our children will likewise see God working in their lives just as he has worked in ours. How important we give that expectation to our children to see God working in their lives. And may the Lord our God show us his approval and make our efforts successful. Yes, make our efforts successful. Pray specifically for God's favour on your work, on your activities in life, that we will have success in what we do. What is success? What is success? Success is what lasts, what outlasts us. That is what determines success. A gardener plants a tree. It takes years to grow, but its shade and fruit blesses generations to come. Similarly, our faithful service may not yield immediate results, but God promises that our fruit will remain. So just like the trees that are planted, little seedlings, they grow into something big over time. That's what should be our influence as well. Time squandered can never be recovered. We should be co-workers with God. Redeem the time by making the most of what time remains, by being a co-worker with God, redeeming the time. So maybe instead of New Year's resolutions, we should be focusing on maybe New Year's priorities. What priorities should we be having in our lives? Now, in our social media-driven culture, we often curate our lives through Instagram stories, Facebook stories, Snap stories, WhatsApp stories. Everyone's got a story. But what would an eternity story look like? What would our eternity story look like if we documented that in our lives? So I'd like to suggest a faith-based bucket list, okay? No, it's not necessarily one. These are just ideas for a faith-based bucket list, okay? Work with God for the salvation of others. Help a person in need. Be a listening ear. Befriend the lonely. Pray for others. Share God's love with others. Volunteer at a local charity, like Adra, in our church hall. Mentor a young person. There's probably another one down there, but it's been cut off. Leave a legacy for eternity. So now we've got a little bit out of whack. So these are some suggestions for a faith-based bucket list. How we can use our time wisely, as the psalmist says, because life is so short. Life is so brief. And so how we can have wisdom in living our lives. Do it. Don't quit. Do it. So how's our hourglass going? Okay, probably not quite half yet. So our hourglass going there. In summary, for lessons from Psalm 90, life is brief, so Moses prayed, teach us wisdom. Life is difficult, and he prayed, satisfy us. Work at times seems futile, so he prayed, establish the work of our hands. And so that was some of the lessons I got from this chapter, Psalm chapter 90. I know it's in March already, but these are some of the things I'd like to think about, and for you to think about in the new year, what we can do for eternity, a legacy for eternity. Life is brief. Okay, I'll just say together once more, teach us to realise the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom. I found this poem in Our High Calling. We live in deeds, not years, in thoughts, not breaths, in feelings, not in figures on a dial. We should count time by heart throbs. They most live who thinks most, feels the noblest, and acts the best. And I pray that this will be our lives in 2024 and beyond.